Step into the world of Founders Dinner. Stories of entrepreneurial wins, losses, and lessons. Where the essence of entrepreneurship is unraveled in its most authentic form. Stas Balanevsky serves as your guide on this journey of discovery and inspiration. In each episode, Stas brings together entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds to share their stories. It's not just about their victories, but more about the resilience and adaptability they've shown in the face of adversity. These narratives are more than just stories. They are lessons in courage, determination, and the relentless pursuit of success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, dreaming of launching your first venture, or an established business leader seeking new perspectives, Founders Dinner is your invitation to explore the transformative power of entrepreneurship. And now, without further ado, let's welcome the host of Founders Dinner, Stas Balanevsky.
Welcome to the Founders Dinner podcast. I'm your host, Stas Balanevsky, and I have the pleasure of having Tricia Marsherall here as my guest today. How are you, Tricia?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me, Stas.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I've really been looking forward to talking to you. And so let's just dive right in. One very simple question. Tell me about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. So I own Marsherall Partners. We are a consulting firm working exclusively with nonprofit organizations. So it's a really niche business. We specialize in donor database management and outsource database processing. So if you've ever made a donation to a nonprofit organization, your information goes into their CRM, and we specialize in managing those CRMs, conversions, database audits, cleanup, those kinds of services.
That's awesome. Back in the day, I used to build CRMs, and I know how important they are, and I know how difficult it is to get them to work.
Yeah. Yes. So we really pride ourselves on bringing business best practices to the nonprofit sector because it's no different in terms of managing those donor relationships as we would manage our client relationships. And honestly, for them, there's so much more at stake. They have missions and communities and people that they're serving.
Yeah, absolutely. So how'd you get into, were you like in the database management club in middle school?
I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs say this, but I kind of fell into business. Mm-hmm. Growing up, my dad was in business for himself, and my mom worked for a multi-generational family business. And so the conversations around our dinner table were often about business. They didn't shy away from talking about the highs, the lows, the tough days, the financially hard days, and the days with some financial windfalls. And so it was just kind of normal that we talked about this roller coaster of a journey. And they really modeled hard work and persevering through the hard times and celebrating the good times. And so for me, I knew that I always wanted to be in business for myself. I just didn't know what that would be. And so fast forward to when I graduated college, I started my career in the nonprofit sector. So I have a really unconventional path to entrepreneurship, but I honestly would advocate for anybody starting out to start in the nonprofit sector, because the unique thing about nonprofit organizations is that they're expected to do more with fewer resources. And so essentially, if you're a warm body and willing to raise your hand and say, yeah, I want to try that, the task is yours. And so at 21 years old, I didn't negotiate my salary. I didn't negotiate vacation days. All I negotiated for that position was who I reported to. And I wanted to report directly to the president and CEO of the cancer center that I was going to be working at. She was just this incredibly dynamic leader, and I knew that I could learn a lot from her. And it was honestly the best thing I ever did. There are lessons that I learned in that job just starting out of college that really gave me the foundation for my business. And I learned more in that job than I did in my entire MBA program. I mean, it was just I did everything from running. I was the only person in fundraising. So the only person in my department. And at 21, I had committees of the board reporting to me. I was doing our employee engagement, our internal employee communications for the entire cancer center. I did payroll
Oh
for the
my
cancer.
gosh.
I mean, it was just such an incredible job and opportunity. And so the experience that I was able to gain really gave me not just the foundation for the heart of what we do, the services that we provide, but also from a business management standpoint. I was just a sponge and soaked in all of the lessons that I could.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's funny. The thing that pops into my head immediately is like, do you know why the Beatles were so good? Because they just went off and they just played gigs,
Yeah.
lots and lots and lots of gigs.
Yeah, yeah, it was exactly that. It was trial by fire. You learned. And I mean, I was managing fundraisers that raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'm managing tracking all of that data and following up with the donors. And so it's like developing those relationships with your clients and understanding the inner workings of how things should operate and putting those processes in place. And so to answer your question in a very roundabout and long-winded way, to say, yes, I did start out in working with nonprofit databases, but that's the role that really introduced me to the love that would grow into my business.
That's amazing. So, a couple of entrepreneurial parents, sort of in the genes. And
Yeah.
then, so you're 21, you're working in this company, you have, 7 different seats on the accountability chart, it sounds like,
Yes.
which is
Exactly.
awesome. You're learning a ton. What was next?
So I moved into another nonprofit role. It was a continuum of care community, and they were embarking on a capital campaign. It was a $26 million capital campaign, and I was brought in on the fundraising operations side. So I was going to be managing the support staff for that campaign. And that's really where my love for the database work grew, because a lot of the funding for this campaign, so it was actually a $108 million project for the campus, of which some was going to be raised through fundraising. And in order to secure funding and begin the project, we had to make sure that our data was in a place that banks and financing would accept the $1 million pledges that we were receiving. And we had everything tied in a neat bow, and we could track where all of those requests stood in terms of the donor life cycle. And that is really where I understood this need for being able to take the data and structure it in a way inside the database that could then be extracted and translated into reports for executive leadership so they could make strategic decisions. And I realized there that there was a need beyond just this organization, that there were a lot of folks who were missing that in the nonprofit world. And so in 2018, I had started my company in 2016 part-time while working full-time. And in 2018, I kind of came to this crossroads of more and more people were coming to me and saying, hey, can you do this? Can you take this on? And I realized that if I didn't go all in on the business at that point, I probably was never going to do it. And so fast forward to today, we are a team of 11 full-time, 5 part-time, and a few per diem. And we serve nonprofit organizations ranging from 100% volunteer run all the way up to large health systems that span multiple states and everything in between. And in 2020, it was just me working locally in Rochester, New York. And once the pandemic hit, I had a choice there, and it's an interesting story, but I decided to pivot our services. We went fully remote, and it was in that decision and in that grind at that period of time that my business actually really exploded. And so we now serve clients across 28 states who support operations in 4 countries.
That's incredible. What a story.
It's been a path. It's been a winding road.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about that winding road when you were absolutely positive that that left turn you were about to take was the right one. And then, unfortunately, at the end of that road, there was probably a cliff of some sort.
I'm not sure I could ever say I was absolutely positive in any decision that I was making.
Let's unpack that because I think that's actually really interesting. I was just sort of kidding, but I've seen analysis paralysis sometimes. And a very, very smart guy once told me the best decision is the right decision.
Right.
The
Yeah.
second best decision is the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And the worst decision is no decision.
Yep.
I was like,
Yep.
wow, that's profound.
Yes. Yes. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think I told myself that if I was going to do this, I needed to just go all in. I didn't want to ever wonder what if.
Mhm.
And I think there are so many opportunities as an entrepreneur to say, what if I did this? What if I did that? And I think I saw modeled by my parents, I saw when they made the wrong choice, but learned quickly and pivoted, and they were okay. They got out of it on the other side and learned some lessons. And sometimes you got to take it on the chin and move forward. And so it's scary. It's scary to do that, to just make a choice and try it. But I can remember so many conversations, and I'm lucky. My husband's incredibly supportive. He's a professor and he teaches in business communications. And so he's got a lens that's super helpful, and just some of the conversations we had. And I'd say, I have no idea if this is going to work. I have no idea if this is the right thing, but I think it's the best choice and I'm going to try it.
Mhm.
And it was that decision when I decided to go all in on the business. It was, well, if I fail, then I have marketable skills and I'll find a job somewhere. And if this isn't the right choice, well, I'm going to learn some lessons and I won't do that again. And so I think I kind of approach business and the decisions that I make with that spirit of it's better to try and to learn than to not try at all, because that's how you become stagnant. If you're not chasing something, if you're not moving towards something, then you're moving away. I mean, that's the reality of this. And so it's for me, it's about learning, and it's about learning quickly. And in fact, I think that often applies to my team. In a lot of our team meetings, I'll ask the question, what's a mistake that you made this week? What lesson did you learn this week? And we share those lessons, because I think sometimes companies and organizations, employees shy away from telling their boss or their supervisor when they've made a
Mhm.
mistake, right? And that's where the big challenges lie, because they sneak up on you.
Yeah.
It always comes to light. And so for me, I can't support my team. I can't help fix things. I can't help have those conversations with a client if we need to have a difficult conversation because we've made a mistake or we're delayed on something. And so when we can talk openly about those mistakes and those lessons learned, there's so many gems in that. And hopefully other team members can learn from it, very similarly to what you're doing with this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I love that. I'm sure you're familiar with like sort of those four levels of psychological safety, right? From
Mhm.
inclusion safety to learner safety to contributor safety, all the way up to challenger safety. And good for you for sort of wrapping all of that up with a tidy little bow and saying like it is absolutely okay. Like I will give you autonomy in exchange for results, but when the results don't come in, I'm open to having a conversation about what happened. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
okay.
I think one thing that I really do celebrate with my team, but uh, the approach that we have with clients as well, is it's about those relationships. I've never lost a client over a mistake that we've made,
Mhm.
because we've taken ownership. We've expressed, here's what happened. Here's what we've learned. Here's how we've fixed it. And moving forward, these are the fail safes that we've now put in place so something like that doesn't happen again. And those are tough conversations to have. They're not fun. Nobody likes disappointing your boss or your client, but they're necessary. And that's where I think prioritizing and emphasizing the relationship, whether it's your clients, your employees, your vendors, that's where there's so many lessons to be gained.
So it sounds to me like you learned this lesson somehow, right? Normally, the way we format this is like, tell me a story where it didn't go right, and then tell me about the lesson. But I feel like you've delivered the lesson. You're making it okay for your teams to let you know about mistakes. And usually that comes from a bruise of some sort. was how'd you get to this? Like what
Yeah.
happened for you to say, nope, I need to make sure that my team is open, honest, and is telling me about any mistakes they made?
Yeah, I think this goes back to those core values of operating with integrity. When you grow up in the nonprofit sector, grow up professionally, right?
Mhm.
Career-wise, nonprofit sector, you have to be good stewards of the donor's resources. They are investing in an organization to go out and solve problems in the world, to provide services in the gaps where the public sector misses. And so I think learning that having those conversations is key and it's important. And for me, it's really the only way to do business to move forward. I'm not sure I can point to any one instance. I think it's a series of paying
Mhm.
attention to the small things over time and just the consistent repetition of staying committed to that value. And so for me, it's yes, I can point to that lesson because it's worked well for me. It's those small things that we choose time and time again to prioritize that. But I can't say that I have a major issue that kind of popped up that brought me to that. It's just seeing that this has worked and this works well. And sometimes the lessons are in saying yes, and sometimes the lessons are in saying no, and knowing, I guess, when to discern between the two.
That's awesome. I love that you went all in. And it's interesting. So I've done, I don't know, 30, I think I've recorded maybe 30 episodes. And I got to say, probably at least 25 of them, the founder is like, yep, so I have this spouse. And that's like one of the reasons why I'm able to do these things. I'm able to take these risks. I'm able to go all in because having that person cheering for you is just so unbelievably important. And
I couldn't agree more. Having that person in your corner who just, I think, at least for me, there are so many points where there's just you're doubting, is this the right thing? Was I nuts to do this? And the answer is probably yes, a little bit. Yes, we're all a little nuts to be entrepreneurs, right? You gotta be. You
totally,
also a little nuts to be married to one.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, no, you're preaching to the choir. Like I remember having a tremendous amount of head trash with getting rid of my CRM business. And, I was in my Vistage group and I'm like, I think I'm going to get rid of it in 6 months. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And they're like, why? I'm like, well, I don't want to leave my people in a lurch. They're like, doesn't matter. You're leaving them in a lurch now. And they
Yeah.
just kept digging and digging and digging. And finally, we got to, I'm afraid to tell my wife I'm getting rid of this business. And one of my buddies in the Vistage group was like, I bet you she does not care. I'm like, I bet she does. He's like, okay, bet. And I'm back, I'm in my office. I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell her. I don't want to tell her. He's just blowing up my phone. He's texting. Did you tell her yet? Did you tell her yet? Finally, I'm like, hey, so this was right when I became an EOS implementer. So I was burning that boat. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking I'm going to get rid of the CRM business. She's like, oh, all right, cool. Like, what's the revenue impact on next year? I'm like, low six figure. She's like, oh, so like you just get a bunch of EOS clients and it's done, right? I'm like, yeah. She's like, all right. So I think we're doing chicken parm for dinner. And I was like, oh my God. So of course I text my buddy. I'm like, yeah, not even a thing.
Yep. Yeah.
She's seen it, right? Smashed into the ceiling, smashed into the parking lot multiple times. And she's like, yeah, so, it's another cycle. It's fine. Like, you're good.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
Yeah. Yep, do your thing. It'll come back around. And that kind of steady presence, though, when you're on that entrepreneurial roller coaster is just, it's so important to kind of pause and be reminded of what matters and the support system that's in place because, yeah, I'm not sure I could do all this without that support system for sure.
No, no way. No way. No matter how strong you are. And it's interesting, right? So we're built as entrepreneurs. I saw a video the other day, maybe today, actually. It is not self-belief. It is not the belief that you're going to win that makes us who we are. It's our reaction to loss.
Interesting.
So it's not like, well, the reason I'm successful, the reason you're successful is because we know we're going to win. Of course, we know we're going to win. That's why we're playing the game. Like,
Right.
we're sure, even if the rest of the world is just like, what are you doing? You're like, winning. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. It's when we lose, it's that visceral reaction that makes us want to not lose again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes,
every
for
time
sure.
we've lost, we're like, that's never going to happen again.
Yeah. Yeah. You won't get the better of me on that one ever again.
And then that
Yep.
lesson gets just burned into your brain.
Yep.
But the self-belief thing, it's not like I have to hype you up to be like, you're going to be successful. You're like, yeah, I know. Well, you don't have to tell me that.
Right. Right.
But God forbid, if I'm in the room when you lose, right? I'm sure that's not a happy time.
Yeah. I think for me though, I have faith that there's a path and there's a reason, there's lessons to be learned. And I think that grit and I think
Mhm.
grit and grace through both wins and losses
Grit
are
and grace.
grit and grace are the
Like that.
key in those times because you have to there is no other choice but perseverance as an entrepreneur, right? And that's perseverance to the next decision, to the sale. It's whatever you're moving toward. But I think the grace piece is it'll work out. And if you miss out on the lesson to be learned, then what was the point in doing whatever it was that got you to this situation?
That is so well said and so powerful. Grit and grace. I've not heard it put that way, but
That's usually my personal mantra, grit and grace.
that's amazing. That's like right there. That's the platinum nugget for people. Well, seriously, right? Because imagine someone listening to this podcast and they're an entrepreneur and they're taking a break from whatever's bugging them and listening, spending 25 minutes listening to a podcast to be like, okay, this might be cool. I wonder what this thing's about. This can change the way someone like wires their brain to be like, okay, if I live with grit and I live with grace, those two things in combination are going to eventually through through this whole journey get me to that next step.
Well, I hope so. I hope that it does help somebody along the way. I
Helped
think,
me. Like
yeah.
I can frame things that way, which I think is really, really cool. So mission accomplished already.
Done. I'm done for the day then.
Done for the day. Yeah. Take the rest of the day off.
Perfect.
I'm pretty sure
Deal.
you're not taking the rest of the day off because it's only 10:25 in the morning, and I'm sure you have a packed schedule.
Oh, goodness.
This is what a great lesson, and what an absolute pleasure having you share your journey and share your thoughts with us.
Oh, well, thank you. I always enjoy these kinds of conversations because I learned so much through it as well.
For sure. And the next, you'll have to come to the next actual founders dinner
I
because
would love that.
that's how the title happened. We get together, every quarter or two and just get a bunch of entrepreneurs in the room and, mix in some snacks and some drinks and then the stories flow and it
And the
is,
story flow, I'm sure.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it's just so much fun. There are people, right? These are our people.
Yeah. And, I think that's the thing, right? Find your people. Find your people that are going to build you up and be there when things are going in the wrong direction.
Because they will.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a guarantee.
That's amazing. Well, wow. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. And, I'll put all of your information with your permission in the notes. I work with some not-for-profits. I'm sure I'd love to make some introductions for you on that. And I'm sure there will be other people that hopefully will reach out to you and see if you can help them like you've helped me today.
Oh, sounds great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And EO related, I will be touching base. We're finalizing the venue for the Accelerator Day on December 11th. So I will be in touch with more information on that as soon as I have that finalized.
Cannot wait. That's going to be so much fun.
Those honestly are my favorite EO days are the accelerator days. We've got a group of 4 accelerators now. So we're growing, we're getting there.
That's amazing. And that's the other thing, right? Like you said, be with your people. So for people that don't know what EO is, it's Entrepreneurs Organization. And the accelerators are for people that haven't quite hit that $1 million a year revenue mark, but are really looking to go all in with other peers and just become better business owners to then make that million, qualify for EO, become a lifelong learner and lifelong member of Entrepreneurs Organization. Because we always say, as EOS implementers, we always say you need a coach, a peer group, and an operating system.
Yes.
So obviously we always say, EOS should be your operating system, but really, honestly, I don't care. Just get an operating system.
Yep.
Go get a peer group because it's super lonely at the top, and go get a coach that's going to hold you accountable and to help you win.
Yes. Yeah. That scaling from the minimum threshold for accelerator is 250, but that scaling from 250,000 to $1 million, man, it feels like there's 20 valleys of death to get to that point.
Sure.
And to have a coach and a peer group to help navigate that, I think would have been a hell of a lot less lonely when I was going through it. So I'm excited that our chapter in Western New York now offers that support.
Thank you for spearheading that. Thank you for giving back, from all of the entrepreneurs that are going to go do great things because of your help. Thank you.
And same to you. Same to you, Stas.
Thanks. And with that, this concludes this week's episode of the Founders Dinner podcast. So for everybody looking to connect with Tricia, just go ahead and scroll down and you'll see all of her contact details. And this is Stas Balanevsky signing off. See you all next week.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Founders Dinner, stories of entrepreneurial wins, losses, and lessons. Once again, we've journeyed through the inspiring and challenging world of entrepreneurship with Stas Balanevsky, uncovering stories that illuminate the resilience and adaptability at the heart of success. Each narrative shared today is a testament to the unyielding spirit of our entrepreneurial guests, providing lessons in courage and determination. We hope these stories have not only entertained, but also inspired you. Whether you're taking the first steps in your entrepreneurial journey or are a seasoned leader in the business world, Founders Dinner is more than just a podcast. It's a community of learning, inspiration, and connection. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more insightful episodes and join our vibrant LinkedIn community to continue the conversation, share experiences, and connect with like-minded entrepreneurs. Until next time, keep embracing the entrepreneurial journey. This is Stas Balanevsky, thanking you for being a part of the Founders Dinner family. See you at the next dinner.